is not a theoretical question. 4 men who helped navigate the Cold War, 4 Cold Warriors, know all too well the dangers we face. Former Secretary of State George Shultz knows firsthand the devastation nuclear weapons can cause from his World War II service in the Pacific.
My thinking about these weapons evolved. At first, what you're trying to do is understand, what is this anyway? And then you see pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you begin to see the horror and the inhumanity of them.
Former National Security Advisor and Secretary of State Henry Kissinger lived daily with the threat of a nuclear exchange while in the White House.
For me, the most searing question was what I would actually tell the president if he turned to me and said, I've done everything I can in the diplomatic field, and my only option now is to use nuclear weapons. Of all the decisions that were before me, that was the most haunting one.
Former Secretary of Defense William Perry knows all too well how close the world has come to nuclear annihilation.
It was about 1978 when I was awoken by a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from the general who was the watch officer at the North American Air Defense Command. And he told me that his computers were showing 200 missiles on the way from the Soviet Union to the United States. Now that, of course, was a false alarm. The point of that story is that the danger of a nuclear war, the danger of a nuclear holocaust, was not academic to me. That experience in particular brought it very close to my consciousness.
And former Senator Sam Nunn has devoted much of his career to preserving this nation's security while reducing the danger of a nuclear exchange.
Back during the Cold War, we were very conscious and sensitive to the great dangers of those weapons in most cases, and we were very good at what we were doing in terms of the professional men and women in the military, indeed on both sides. But we were also very lucky. There were a number of times that I know about, and probably a lot more that I don't know about, where only by the grace of God did we avoid going to war.
The world has changed since the end of the Cold War. More countries have nuclear weapons and others are attempting to develop nuclear weapons capabilities. The world needs energy, and that has many countries understandably turning to nuclear power, which, unless safely and securely managed, could also spread sensitive technologies to make the materials essential to a nuclear bomb. The simple fact is, we need new strategies to deal with today's nuclear threats.
If you can learn how to enrich fuel for a nuclear power plant, you've learned how to enrich it for a weapon.
We cannot uninvent nuclear weapons. We cannot repeal E = mc squared.
More states are acquiring nuclear weapons or developing the technology to build them. A terrorist organization would need no more than 1 or 2 of those weapons or the material to make them to throw our planet into chaos. The danger is very, very real. We are at a nuclear tipping point, and the actions being taken are not adequate to the threat.
Over the long term, we need to be heading towards the total elimination of nuclear weapons. And over the short term, we need to be taking the steps to reduce the danger that the nuclear weapons we already have could be used. This is such an important problem in my mind that it dwarfs all other considerations.
The way I view it is that if you view the goal of getting to zero as the top of the mountain in terms of nuclear weapons, then we can't even see the top of the mountain today. We're heading down, we're not heading up. It's going to take a long time to see the top of the mountain, but I think we have an obligation to our children and to our grandchildren to build paths up the mountain, to get other people to go up the mountain with us, because this cannot be unilateral.
We don't quite know what the mountaintop will look like. We don't quite know how to get to that mountaintop. And we won't make any proposals that we cannot justify, but we are determined to go up that mountaintop.
A man named Max Kampelman, who had been my counselor when I was Secretary of State, made an eloquent statement emphasizing the importance of talking about what ought to be. If you're constantly mired in what is, and you never look at what ought to be, you're never going to really get anywhere. And he used the Declaration of Independence as an example. All men are created equal. In 1776, are you kidding? We had slaves. Women couldn't vote. You had to have property in order to vote. We had the ought up there. And gradually, over time, often with a lot of pain and agony and difficulty, but gradually, the is has come closer to the ought. And we ought to have a world free of nuclear weapons.
Once nuclear weapons are used, we will be driven to take global measures to prevent it. So some of us have said, let's ask ourselves, if we have to do it afterwards, why don't we do it now?